Attack on Titan is the best anime that people don't watch anymore. And I say best because it has delivered some of the most well-written surprises I have ever in my life witnessed. The series gained worldwide mainstream popularity during the summer of 2013 with its high concepts and breathtaking visuals. However, you might best remember it as that one show with naked giants and an amazing theme song. Despite all of this, however, due to a 4-year-long hiatus between the first and second seasons, the vast majority of folks that got into the series originally never picked it up again. And with its third season having just wrapped up before the big final season next year, I gotta say, it's a shame more people aren't watching. A show that has delivered time and time again without fail has been Attack on Titan, delivering upon every promise, twist, turn, and payoff. Today we are jumping in and breaking down the genius behind a great surprise through the cruel world of Attack on Titan.
一人の兵士に気をつけろって？はい、リヴァイ兵長は危険です。
You might not know this, but before we sit down to watch anything new, as viewers we unconsciously make a wish. Please let this be good, let it be an experience I've never had before. Let me see the world in a new way. We want to laugh at things we haven't laughed at before, to be moved by things that we haven't experienced. And as a result of that, when an episode begins, immediately we start creating expectations, thinking this will happen or that will change. And if the story isn't worth telling, or the writer hasn't done their job, the story will play out the way the audience expects it to. In other words, the audience prays for surprise, the reversal of expectations without compromise. And no, I don't mean subverting expectations for the sole purpose of it being a surprise. I mean a surprise that's rooted within the story. Let me explain. There are two kinds of surprise that writers utilize to take their audiences on a ride. The first being true surprise. True surprise reveals itself through sudden revelation. And what makes this true surprise is the sudden rush of insight that immediately follows it. It's the aha moment. You had all the pieces to put it together, but you never did. And when it's revealed, suddenly all of those pieces fall into place and it all makes sense. This is meaning. The idea that everything you've watched happened for a reason. Or as the writer behind all of your favorite Pixar movies, Andrew Stanton, puts it,
storytelling is joke telling. It's knowing your punchline, your ending, knowing that everything you're saying from the first sentence to the last is leading to a singular goal, and ideally confirming some truth that deepens our understandings of who we are as human beings.
Throughout the entire story of Attack on Titan, there's been a number of small revelations, each one building off the last. And when the ball finally drops at the end of Season 3, Eren suddenly comes to realize who the Titan that killed his mother really was, and that she was the reason he was able to use the coordinate power to control the Titans. All this information is received by us in an instant. Without words, we are on the same page as Eren. And if done correctly, this new understanding retroactively enriches the prior events of the story that we've experienced, providing a new lens for which to view the world through. This is the meaning the viewer is looking for, the revelation of truth beneath the surface of the fictional world. The cheap surprise. This is the second type of surprise, and it's known as the cheap surprise. This isn't to imply that it has no value, just that it requires significantly less build-up and effort to achieve the desired effect than the prior true surprise we explored earlier. Instead of revealing new information, this surprise preys on the expectations of the viewer in order to achieve its desired effect. In a show like Attack on Titan, the viewer expects that Eren, the Chosen One, with the tragic past, after rallying his comrades, will win the day. We have our expectations, and then reality. Attack on Titan utilizes this to reinforce its themes of a harsh and cruel world, communicating that not only can anything happen, but that no one is really special. And despite the fact that Eren does come back from this, it's not because he's special, it's because he happens to have been given abilities that are. Nothing about him as a person is intrinsically unique. This particular surprise type, although effective, is abused often in storytelling. For example, in Jurassic Park 3, our main character is flying in a plane. Suddenly, he wakes up to find that something is wrong. There's no one flying the plane. As he begins to panic, he turns his head to see a dinosaur staring at him.
Alan!
Smash cut, it's a dream.
Alan!
on.
You piss off!
This scene creates an artificial audience expectation that something terrible happened to the crew and that he will have to land the plane himself. But the reality that hits adds nothing to the story and only diffuses and entirely extinguishes the suspense that was built up. The only reason this scene exists in the first place is to give the audience a shock to keep them alert. It can easily be cut out entirely and nothing would be lost in the process. In other words, this is entirely circumstantial and as a result is meaningless. In comparison, the vengeful hero charge that Eren led in episode 5 is essential for the story. For without this scene, without this sudden reality check, he wouldn't have found himself in the specific circumstances that led to him uncovering his Titan's power, and ultimately the truth much later. So, what's in the basement? This is a writing concept widely known as the mystery box, as coined by J.J. Abrams.
In terms of the content of it, you look at stories, you think, well, what are stories but mystery boxes? There's a fundamental question. In TV, the first act is called the teaser. It's literally the teaser. It's the big question. Mystery in terms of imagination, the withholding of information, doing that intentionally.
Funnily enough, a great example of how to successfully establish and ultimately ruin a mystery box can be observed with a TV show J.J. Abrams wrote, Lost. The island itself acts as a mystery box. Who else is on the island? What's going on there? Questions arise around the island and its mystery. However, the ending sort of doesn't land in a satisfying way for the majority. In all reality, the nature of a mystery box is pretty easy to establish. However, the longer the mystery box is left unopened, the more complicated and near impossible it becomes to deliver something satisfying, particularly if you are making it up as you go. But Attack on Titan knew exactly what it was doing from the very beginning, and boy, does it pay off. As I said earlier in the video, great stories create meaning. We look for storylines to connect. We consistently strive to find correlation, speculating, thinking, and predicting what the answer will be around the next corner. Who's behind that mask? What's on that letter? What's in that basement? With the shot of a simple photograph, without a word being uttered, it entirely reshapes our understanding of the world without contradicting, retconning, or compromising established parts of the story in the slightest. This is damn good storytelling. And it's reinforced by this quote from Robert McKee. The story must build to a conclusion beyond which the audience cannot imagine another. Now, this doesn't mean to surprise for the sake of surprising. It's specifically worded such that meaning and reasoning takes priority. When we see this photograph, we get a better frame of reference for which to view the world. In other words, this reveal had purpose, it had meaning, it had something of substance to say. And this next scene is no different.
これが鎧の巨人で、こいつが超大型巨人。
This scene right here was the first moment I realized Attack on Titan wasn't just another TV show, but a classic in the making. Ignoring the masterstroke that was Reiner revealing this vital piece of information so casually to Eren out of nowhere, oftentimes these sorts of scenes where the antagonist reveals themselves fall flat. And that's usually a result of poor planning, where the writer might select a random character to become the villain because he needs one. And as a result, it can feel really forced if there weren't any signs of corruption prior. This is not the case with Attack on Titan. For if you were to go back and watch from the very beginning, knowing what you do now about Reiner, Annie, and Bertolt, you would notice a plethora of interesting choices of dialogue, suspect visuals in OPs, and strange actions committed by these individuals. In other words, Attack on Titan gave you all the necessary pieces to solve this mystery, and that's the most important part. In order to deliver a satisfying conclusion to a mystery, all the pieces of the puzzle need to be available to the viewer. If they're not, then the viewer could never have solved it. And as a result, you'll never hear them say, "Oh, it was him, that makes sense, of course." Or worse again, you inject coincidence and ultimately meaninglessness into your story. A show like Attack on Titan makes promises. And by masterfully wielding his pen, Isayama has carefully crafted twists and surprises with grace and precision unlike anything I've ever seen. Time and time again, where lesser shows would have resigned themselves to meaningless, coincidental Deus Ex Machina, Attack on Titan manages to find meaning in the most unpredictable of ways. In my experience, there have been very few shows that have delivered such unrelentingly consistent and superb work all the way through. Its visuals are melancholic and spectacular. The dialogue purposeful and dramatic. Its music haunting and ethereal. The first episode, the first scene, the first seconds of any story makes a promise to all of us. A promise that there is truth beneath the surface of this fictional world. And with a courageous charge into its final season, Attack on Titan Shingeki no Kyojin, I'm certain will continue to surprise, excite, and most importantly, will keep the promises it's made to all of us. To its fans, to me, and to you, 2,000 years from now.